There it is. There she is. There she is. This is absolutely terrifying. Let's move our spotlight up. This is creepy. Hey everyone, welcome to Titanic in virtual reality. Today we're doing something very exciting. We've done some Titanic videos in the past, and I'm not a history channel, but I do enjoy talking about Titanic. It's one of my favorite subjects, and if I can mix it with gaming, then that would be absolutely brilliant. And this is one of those rare games that does it really well. This is a virtual reality game. I'm using my HTC Vive, my quite old by now HTC Vive, to experience Titanic in virtual reality. This game offers two different kinds of experiences. You can experience the sinking of Titanic, which is absolutely brilliant, which we are going to do, but not today. It also offers a sandbox experience where you can explore the wreck in a submarine. You can also play the actual game. It's a sort of, it gives you missions, certain objectives, items you have to find in the wreckage, certain areas you have to research. You have to sort of clean up artifacts in a shore-based facility or on a ship, I don't know, but at the surface at least. But today we're going to have a look at the wreck. We're going to have a very brief look at the wreck because I've been getting some comments on my YouTube videos concerning the sinking of Titanic, and one of my viewers asked about the Marconi wireless room, the radio room, which was on Titanic. And I thought it would be brilliant to see if we can find what's left of it on the wreck. So we're going to select sandbox, we're going to select bow, and that means that we're going to use our submarine to visit the bow section of Titanic. We're inside our little submarine right now. It's absolutely brilliant. Look at this. You probably can't hear me when I look the wrong way. The microphone is in front of me. If I do this, you probably can't hear me, but look at this. This is brilliant. So we have 4 sets of controls right here. We're slowly, there we are. We're at the seabed right now for Titanic. So we're basically in free play mode right now. So we have this stick right here. Oh, hang on. Come on, select it. There we go. With this, we can move forward, backwards, left, right. This one is our turning stick. So we can turn left and right. This one is up, and this one is down. And with this one, we can control our spotlight. Now, just a warning. This game freaks me out. There is a non-VR experience in the same game. You can play this game not in VR, and you're just on your PC, just exploring it, in non-VR, just on your screen. And that's scary enough, the absolute darkness, the shipwreck looming in the darkness. That's scary enough on its own, but this is going to be absolutely horrifying in VR. I get spooked out really easily by this game, so let's hope that my nerves won't abandon me today. We are going to try and make our way towards the wreck. We can see on our little display, I just hit the microphone with my HTC Vive one right there. You can see on the little display right here that our target is ahead of us. So we're going to make our way to it. We're going to move ahead just a tiny bit to the left, and we're right in front of the wreck. The simulation always drops us down right ahead of the wreck, so we're going to see the bow loom up out of the distance. And if you look at the seabed right now, I'm not sure if it's visible, but it is rising a little bit. And what we're seeing you can definitely see it right here, right? You can see that it's sort of rising up. And what that is the evidence of the impact that the bow had. When it ploughed its way down, it was traveling forward as well, not just downward. And the impact with, I think, 30 miles an hour or so, 30 knots in the seabed, actually pushed up a lot of dirt, a lot of sand, as the bow sort of buried its way inside seabed. And right around now, we're going to have to move up a little. We should be coming into view of the bow section. Move forward a little bit. There it is. There she is. There she is. This is absolutely terrifying. Let's move our spotlight up. This is creepy. This is absolutely nerve-wracking in VR. Right, let's get closer. Let's move up a little. So you can see she is buried up to her anchors in the sand. She has a significant part of her buried in the sand. There we go. We can see the crane that was used to deploy the central anchor, which we can see it's in the deck right there. You see it just below the crane? It's very big. We all know this spot, of course. This is where, in the very famous movie Jack and Rose were standing. Normally, just FYI, people wouldn't be allowed up front like that. This was completely reserved for crew. There we go. You can see the anchor chains running across the deck here. Let's try and not hit the wreck, because that's probably what happened. There's been a bit of a commotion about the recent expedition to the wreck, where they completely mapped her out in 3D. They found out that the railing that we're looking at right now is gone. It's no longer there. It's lying next to the wreck on the bottom of the ocean. Probably people are assuming that it's because a submarine probably crashed into it. And you don't need a lot of force to dislodge it after, what's it been, 113 years. So let's try and not hit the wreckage. We are moving across the bow section now. You can see the anchor chain right there. What we're looking at right now is the forward hatch, which was a cargo hatch. And the cover of that was actually blown off the wreck when it hit the seabed. She was completely full of water. The bow section was completely filled with water by the time she hit the seabed. So when she hit it, when she hit bottom, you can imagine the underside was compressed. She was being compressed. She buckled as the hull was forced inwards. So all that water was forced out of the bow. She basically shrunk. The internal volume shrunk as the hull was compressed by hitting the seabed. And all that water wanted out, and this was the easiest way to go. So the forward hatch was blown off as she hit the wreckage, as she hit the seafloor. And we actually know where this hatch went. The hatch is lying several hundred meters forward of the wreckage, which, gives you an indication of just how forcefully she hit the ground. Let's move further along. You can see the mast right now, which is suspended over the forward well deck. There are the two cargo cranes on either side. We're looking at the lookout crow's nest basically right now. And as of today, this mast is no longer suspended like this. It's actually collapsed onto the deck, so it's disintegrating quite rapidly. Right, so in the darkness above the crow's nest, we are going to see what used to be the bridge looming up. There we go. There we are. This is a very famous shot. That thing right there, solitary standing object right there, that's the telemotor. That's the part that the wheel was attached to, ship's wheel. Now, and all those little plaques on the ground, on the deck, are memorial plaques that have been left there by previous expeditions. So, one interesting thing is that you may know that Titanic actually had two wheelhouses. She had two wheels. Well, three actually, one at the stern as well, but two wheels on the bridge. Now, this is the innermost one. This one was completely shielded from the elements. This is where the quartermaster was standing as he was steering the ship when they hit the iceberg. The other one was in front of it, a little more exposed, where the ship's telegraphs were as well. And that bit's completely gone. Look, there's nothing left of it. This bit where the deck hangs down, that's where the bridge was. You can still sort of see the outlining. This bit that's hanging down right there, that's the outline. The bridge would have gone all the way up towards this little bit right here. And everything is just gone. It's just collapsed. So there's nothing left of the bridge at all, apart from that telemotor. Now, above there, we can see the air intake that we discussed in a previous video. If you remember, if you've seen that video, this is where Second Officer Lightoller was being almost sucked into the ship as the ship was going down. But he was saved last minute by a blast of hot air. Pushed him free. But this is that very same intake. And just beyond that, this is going to be possibly quite a scary image, is going to be a, well, it can only be described as a maw, a mouth going into the ship, which is quite a scary sight in VR. This is the base of the first funnel. So this is where all the smoke and, soot would have come up and be carried away by the funnel. So this is all that's left. The entire funnel's broken off. And this is going straight down to the boilers. But we're not here to see that. We are here to see the Marconi wireless room. And we are going to move across here. There should be nothing to our right, so it should be good. We're looking at the officers' promenade right now, with the bit protruding, just behind that winch. That's the first class staircase. Now we can do a whole other video on the first class staircase because it's a very interesting place in the ship, and it's quite scary as well because there's just a hole going down. We can pass by here for a quick look. See that right there? That's going straight down, all the way to E deck. But we're not here to explore that now. We're here to explore the Marconi wireless room, and that is right here. These skylights. The one closest to us is by the Marconi wireless room. That's just below there. And the aft one, I believe, was for sanitary facilities for the officers, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway, now you may be wondering, how are we going to explore the Marconi wireless room? Well, this is where it's going to become very scary for me, because we are going to use an ROV, a remotely operated vehicle, to actually penetrate the wreck. We're going inside, but using the ROV is very scary. So this is the ROV. We're going to use it. We're going to set this smooth, right? Yeah, we're going to use the ROV now. If I get scared, please forgive me. Bear with me. This is going to be very scary. There we are. We are now in complete. That's the submarine. And completely around us. Now this is absolutely terrifying. The darkness surrounding us. It's really scary. Anyone who's used a VR, you'll know how immersive it is, and it's very scary. Right, so we've got our little claws. We can actually manipulate things with this. These are my arms. I'm using the rollers to move them. So let's go in here. Let's turn very slowly and move down. There we go. We are now inside the Marconi wireless room, which was, if you're not familiar with those terms, it's basically the radio room. That's what it is. It's the radio room where, the radio operators, or Marconi wireless operators as they were called, would work to basically keep the ship in touch with the rest of the world, which was quite a wonderful technology at the time. I'm going to go outside here because, narrow as this may seem, particularly in VR, this would have been the hallway. So this was the door to the Marconi wireless room. Let me turn. Come on. Controllers are acting up a bit. Not letting me turn. And turn to the left. So this hallway. If we head to the right here, this will lead us towards the grand staircase, the first class grand staircase. And just take a little look. This is very scary. Oh Christ, this is scary. I'm not going there, not without the light of the submarine. I need some more light before venturing in there. That's very terrifying. These, if I'm not mistaken, are the winches used for the elevators, which are just below here. These are the lifting mechanisms for the elevators, which didn't go up to the boat deck because the winches were on this level. This is the boat deck level, basically. Now, this right here is the Marconi wireless room. As you can see, this giant split down the entire length of the ship, or well, breadth of the ship, because, you know, that way's aft, that way's forward, so this is, you know, sideways. This was the forward expansion joint. It was basically a way for the ship to be flexible in waves. If you make a ship that's very stiff, made out of cast iron, which is very brittle, and you're going to make it in a way that it can't really flex or bend, then there is a distinct possibility of the ship just breaking in two, just clean breaking in half. If you drop a cast iron pan on the floor, on a hard floor, it will just crack in two. You know, cast iron is very brittle. So in order for the ship to be flexible, they put in basically a flexibility joint, an expansion joint, which allowed the ship to sort of move away, just move apart a little bit as she rode through the waves. But as she hit the bottom, she basically broke her back, and you can see that in this expansion joint. It's now permanently around 20 or 30 centimeters apart, entire breadth of the ship. So, the Marconi wireless room. Submarine right there. A little interesting tidbit about the Marconi wireless operators. They weren't actually part of the crew of the ship. They were employed by the White Star Line, sort of, sourced from the Marconi wireless company. They were here on the ship, they worked here, they lived here, they actually lived in these quarters. I'll go into details in a bit. But they were sort of, owned by the Marconi wireless company. And they were just employees in service of, basically outsourced to the Titanic. And this is where they would work. This is their working area. You can see the telegraph machine right here, where they tap this and they give off Morse signals across wireless communication, across radio signals. And this is it. This is where they worked. This right here is the generator room, and basically where all the machinery was for the complicated radio equipment that they had at the time, which isn't very interesting, not in this game at least. It was very interesting in real life. You can see some machinery right here, see some on the walls, and a lot of this is actually in quite good condition on the wreck, because not much of it was iron, much of it was brass or copper or other materials that, are not really that corrosive when put into seawater, that prone to corrosion, I should say. So this is where they would work, this is their desk, and this is where they would sleep. They had a bunk bed right here, which you can see there's the bottom bed and the top bed lying right here. They would sleep here, they would have a little bench right here, and these three little rooms would be basically their quarters for the entire voyage. Now, another interesting thing about the Titanic disaster, not many people know this, but Marconi wireless operators, there were two on the ship, and they were under strict instructions that if their equipment should ever break down, they were not allowed to fix it themselves. They were not technicians. There were technicians in every major port that ships with Marconi wireless equipment would frequent, who could fix any sort of issue. But the operators were not allowed to fix the machinery if it broke down. If the main machinery broke down, they had a sort of secondary radio machine right here, but the range very insignificant, certainly compared to the normal machinery. Now, as it so happened, a few days before Titanic hit the iceberg on her maiden voyage, the machinery actually broke down, and one of the Marconi wireless operators actually went ahead and fixed it himself against instructions of the company. They had standing orders that prevented or prohibited them from trying to fix it themselves. He ignored that, and he was actually able to fix it. So the Marconi wireless machinery was completely operational by the time they hit the iceberg. If that man hadn't fixed machinery, their SOS would probably not have reached any ships within, the Carpathia would certainly have been out of reach. Mount Temple would certainly have been out of reach. It's very likely that had the radio operator, the Marconi wireless operator, not fixed the machinery, that no one would have actually known that Titanic was going down, which is quite a scary thought. And it's one of those little things, if only. And studying Titanic, there are lots of what ifs or if onlys, and most of them are, if only this, then everything it could have been avoided. But this is actually one that saved a lot of lives, because people who were in the lifeboats would not have lasted long in open lifeboats in the middle of the Atlantic. So that's a very interesting story about the radio operator actually saving lots and lots of lives by going against company orders and fixing the machinery himself. So yeah, that's it. This is the Marconi wireless room. This is all that's left, and we're very lucky that the room is so accessible that it has the skylight, which was, quite a luxury for the Marconi wireless operators. They were cramped inside this little space, but at least they had a little bit of natural light, and they could open the windows and enjoy some fresh sea air as they went about their work. There's that. Now, I think we can get my remote to work. The turn left button is a bit stuck, which is a bit annoying. Go right here. Okay. Now, this hallway leads all the way up to the bridge. And these quarters right here would have been the offices. There are sanitary... Yeah, so the second skylight was indeed for the sanitary facilities of the offices. I'm just trying to peek from under my headset to see if I'm still facing the microphone. Yeah, so this door right here leads out onto the boat deck, which I am not comfortable with going here, because it's honestly, guys, it's so scary to do this in VR. I'm not even kidding. It's terrifying. So these cabins right here would have been the officers. So Second Officer Charles Lightoller, I believe I mentioned in the video which quarters were his, and it would have been one of these quarters right here. I believe it would have been this one right here. I think these were his quarters. And moving up, it looks like we can't go any further, but since we are a tiny little ROV, we can pass through here, I believe. There we go. And we are now inside the wheelhouse. You can see the telemotor, which we saw earlier, right there. The memorial plaques down by the ledge, and that it's probably more of a ridge. That ridge that you can see going there, comes back right here. That's actually the border of what would have been the walls. So you can see the outline of this room. This is where the ship's wheel would have been. Now down to this side, this is very scary. You would have the captain's quarters. Almost complete. But let's not go there for now. Let's try and make our way back to our submarine, because it is very scary in the dark here. Be more comfortable with the light of the large submarine, giving us a vague idea of our surroundings. You can see the light right there, probably. Let's make our way back to the submarine. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video right here, do let me know. And if you want to see any other part of the ship, let me know, and I'll try to see if I can find it in this game. Not every room is available, but many are. And if you want to see something, just comment, let me know, and I'll try to see if I can deliver. Although, please don't ask me to go towards the breakup point. It's one of the most scary parts of this game. Absolutely terrifying is going aft along the deck and just suddenly seeing it end. Just seeing the ship end in darkness. Just it curves down towards the aft section of the ship, of the bow. The decks have sort of collapsed onto each other, so the entire ship just sort of drops off gradually till it just hits it's the seabed, and that's actually an interesting area because you can see inside the boiler room. You can actually see some of the boilers, but it is really nerve-wracking to be there. So if you want to annoy me, you'll have to request me to do that bit. And in the meantime, I hope you have enjoyed this little bit. I am going to do the sinking experience where you're actually on deck in VR. Look at the little fish, so you can see the ship sinking. You're sort of experiencing what it's like to be a passenger being evacuated, and that's really impressive in VR. And I'm probably going to do the campaign, with the going inside the wreck, retrieving artifacts, which is going to be scary because I played some of it before, and you are required to go towards the breakup part of the bow section. Absolutely terrifying. Talking like this makes it a little bit less terrifying. It keeps me occupied. It distracts me from utter darkness around me. Absolute shadow right there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you next time.